A lot of businesses would make far more revenue if they actually had a means of tracking their leads. That's why we build the Enquiry Management System to essentially streamline the process, take the business owner out of doing all of the follow-ups so they can focus on the things that are actually going to move their business forwards, like closing more calls and managing more lead flow. The goal with business is to find a system that you can put £1 in and get £2 out, and you can then essentially run this at an infinite scale, which is why we built this system as one of the first ports of calls for the coaches, consultants, and course creators that we work with. So you'll see inside the platform that we have the opportunity section, and we have different stages along this where leads will then move through based off where they are in that sales process. For example, if a lead applies, they'll then appear in this column. If they schedule their call, they'll then move to the consult scheduled. But what we can then do, if a lead doesn't move along, we then automate the whole follow-up process. So imagine a lead fills out your application form, they don't book in their call, so they automatically get an email, an SMS, or even a WhatsApp follow-up message. Now, the cool thing that we can do with this is if the lead then doesn't reply to that follow-up, they can then get another follow-up. So we literally then take you out of having to do all of these steps manually, and you then focus on the things that are going to move your business forwards, like getting more leads in and closing more sales. It then never becomes a bottleneck, the amount of leads that you have, and you just focus on closing. Now, a lot of the time, I think businesses make the mistake of thinking that they always need to bring more leads in, and they never really maximize the true value of all of the leads in their pipeline already. For example, a lead might no-show, they then get disregarded. They might cancel their call, they get disregarded. Just because a lead doesn't pull the trigger now doesn't mean that they won't in 2 months, a month, 3 months, essentially just down the line. So for example, you'll then see that we have the no-show column. So if a lead no-shows their call, they will appear here and they'll get a series of follow-ups, email, SMS, and even WhatsApp to prompt them to rebook back in. Alongside that, if a lead then cancels, they then appear in the cancel column and then get the appropriate follow-ups. And when they schedule their call back in, they then move back into the schedule column. So you then essentially have a pipeline that's always automated, that's always adjusting, so you can see exactly where each lead is no matter the time. What we then want to do is we want to build 2 additional columns, one for manual follow-up. You might speak to a lead that might have an objection about starting until a certain date. They can go into here. You can add a task in the platform that will then notify you to follow up with that lead on that certain date. And then lastly, there's naturally going to be a percentage of leads that don't convert. We want them in a loss column, and in that loss column, we then want to have a list of people who are essentially unconverted. They then get followed up and into a nurture sequence to try and nurture them. And then down the line, if you then have offers like Black Friday, like a lower price product, you can then easily retarget those specific leads. Essentially, we want an ecosystem of leads that when a lead comes in, they essentially convert or give you some answer. They're never just left doing nothing. Now, a big part of all of this is the automation section where we build all of the automations already in folders, which literally replaces the need for softwares like Zapier. Problem with Zapier is they charge you huge amounts the more that you use the platform. We want to essentially reward your loyalty, so we don't charge more the more that you use the automations. You could have 1 million automations, 10 million automations, and the price would be the same. We then literally build all of these and we fold them up so it's easy for you to, 1, understand how the automations work, 2, how they work, and then even easier for you to tweak them down the line as your business evolves. For example, a lot of business owners could increase their show rate if they did a couple things. One of which is setting up a call confirmation page, so when calls are booked, redirects to a call confirmation page with a clear VSL on the next steps and endless amounts of social proof. Positions you as an authority, it will increase your show rates, and it will allow you to sell at higher prices because leads are more bought into that process. But alongside that, we want to drip feed reminders to leads and also continually drip feed more content around client case studies so that your show rates are as high as possible. Here is how we do that in the automation that we will literally pre-built for you. So this triggers when a call is booked. We remove them from any follow-ups because they've now booked their call. We don't want to follow up with them anymore. We update their notes so that their contact is always updated. So we literally have a record of every action that they've taken in your business. We add them to the call scheduled column that I showed you earlier, and then we tag them. A big thing is tagging your leads. It might seem like a tiny little step, but when you're tagging them, it's even easier for you to then see where leads are and also categorize them if you then want to send out emails to certain types of people. What we then do is we send them an email confirming their call, and we hit them with an SMS or WhatsApp. WhatsApp generally will get a higher percentage open rate compared to SMS, and it starts a conversation, which means that it can break the ice a lot before a call because it opens a back and forth thread. We then want to wait 24 hours before the call and hit them with another email reminder. We want to wait 1 hour before, hit them with another email, 30 minutes before, and hit them with an SMS or WhatsApp. This flow works incredibly well because there's enough reminders, but you're not just spamming it. If you overdo the reminders, people sort of switch off from them because they've got so many. But if you underdo it, your show rates are hit. So ultimately that flow works incredibly well, and we obviously build this out. Then alongside this, we want a whole follow-up sequence that the minute that a lead applies, if they don't book in their call, they automatically get followed up, which is this flow. So you'll see up here, when someone fills out your application form, we update them into the pipeline, into the applied section. We tag them so we can see they've applied. We notify the business owner, the setter, whoever is managing that part of the business, and then we update their notes again. What we then do is we wait 10 minutes to check, have they booked that call within that period of time? If they haven't, we then hit them with an email and a WhatsApp or SMS. WhatsApp works incredibly well because it's pretty instant, sparks a conversation. It helps handle any objections because a lot of the time, if you're working with clients that don't really get on calls, it can be a daunting task. So what we want to do is we want to open a conversation, handle any objections, make them feel like they're speaking to a human, and then book them in for the call. It will scoop up a lot of extra leads. What we then want to do is we want to then hit another follow-up 4 hours later with another SMS if they haven't replied, SMS or WhatsApp. Same again, 10 hours, an email, 2 days, text or WhatsApp. Essentially, you get the flow. We then have a series of follow-up sequences to save you having to do any of it. So you then literally just focus on pushing leads in and taking calls. You then don't have to worry about all of these manual follow-ups. You don't have to worry about leads dropping off. A lot of businesses have percentages of leads that drop off at certain points in their sales process, which makes it incredibly hard to scale because they have what we call as a leaky bucket where a lead comes in and then they just fall out. We want this process to be streamlined. Now, the next step is replacing Calendly. So instead of paying more the more that you use it, with Calendly, you have to pay extra the more users on it. With ours, you can have unlimited users, no extra cost. Inside calendars here on the left, we then build out all the appropriate calendars and they literally look identical to Calendly. If you click the link in our bio, you'll see our calendar. Looks identical and it works in the same way. If anything, it works better because we can integrate it with loads of different softwares all in one place, which is a little bit harder with Calendly. We build out all these calendars, for example, a client call, a consult call, a testimonial call, another client call, and a consult call. This then means that all of your calls are in one place, clients can book in, leads can book in, it can all just flow. And what you'll then notice inside each calendar is we can set the meeting invite title, so what it will show up as in your calendar, for example, consult call, then the lead's name. But what we can do down here is we can optimize the appointment distribution. So for example, we can optimize it to essentially find the available slots. So for example, if you're just taking calls, it will just show the times that you're available. But if you're taking calls and I'm taking calls on your calendar, we could set it up so that we both have our availability and the calls will then just go to whoever is available. But what we can also do is we can set it up to equally distribute. So for example, if we're both on the calendar, it will then give us 50-50 calls. Or if we know that you're a better closer than me, you could then get 70% and I could get 30%. That works really well when you're training new closers, is you give them a smaller percentage of the calls so that then the close rate doesn't drop too much. Then lastly, what we can do down here is we can set the color that we want the event to show as in your calendar. And this can just integrate into whatever calendar you're using, Google, Outlook, Apple, whatever calendar. And then lastly, what we want to do is we want to set up the key settings to ensure that your show rates and close rates are as high as possible. So inside availability, you notice we've got numerous different settings in the calendar. Inside availability, we could even look at putting a percentage as busy. If you have a huge amount of availability on your calendar, we could put a percent as busy so it makes you look not as, essentially it makes you look busier, right? However, I would suggest leaving it off because we want the times that are available to be available. The more, the better in a way, which I'll explain later, because it means that leads are more likely to book a call. If there's limited availability, it limits the chances. And what we want to do is we want to set a date range here. So leads can only book 7 days in advance, which forces them to get the next available slot and forces them onto the call as quick as possible. So we don't need to worry about looking busy because they can only see 7 days of availability in advance and we want to push them into calls. Meeting interval, you can set these at whatever time frame that you'd like. So for example, people can book an hour, half hour, hour, half hour. Otherwise, you might get bookings at 20 past the hour, 5 minutes past the hour, and then you end up missing slots. We want people to book on the hour or the half hour, which then means you're essentially maximizing your availability. Meeting duration, how long do we want the meeting to be? Minimum scheduling notice, how soon to the call do we want them to be able to schedule? Generally 18 hours works well. If people are booking even closer to that, it can throw off your schedule a little bit and make it harder to plan your day, so we go 18 hours. Maximum bookings per day, if you're really capped on time, you could set it so there could only be 5 bookings a day. And then the maximum bookings per slot, if you want to double book yourself, if you have a huge amount of lead flow, you could double book yourself and then make sure that you're essentially never having no shows to calls and you always have someone onto a call. Generally, I'd leave it as one though, it works better. And then we can set a buffer each time so you're not then rushed at the end of each call. Using the inquiry management system, you'll streamline your whole inquiry process and then have a means of actually understanding where your leads are in your sales journey and ensuring that you reduce the drop off between each stage.